G'day, I'm Mick, and this is just a quick video for those of you who are perhaps locked in with family or flatmates who are a bit of a hard sell on D&D, especially if you come at them with a pencil and a sheet like this. I mean, come on. So I thought I'd speed run you through the how and why of the easy sheets that I make for one-shots and new players that really drops that barrier. We don't just pre-make the characters and hand it to them, we deliver it in a format that feels more like a board game and ensures that they won't even need a pencil. Right, so what are the problems with this? If you've never seen this sheet before, that's a whole lot of information and it all looks the same. What's important? Where should I be looking? What does armor class even mean? Do I really need all of this? Well, no, you don't. So let's simplify, sort, and, scratch out a lot of this. We want a smaller sheet, but where to start? Remember, we don't want the players to need pencils, so we need another way to track the information that will be changing, like health, which we can do with a slider. If you've ever played Betrayal, this should look familiar. That way you can use a paperclip, a hair clip, a peg, even a couple of fridge magnets to keep track. We're not about to introduce health tracking die or some other really gamey prop. We want to keep this simple, on and about the sheet. So then we have armor class, which makes no sense to people new to D&D, so let's just call it defense and stick it over here. That way we can section off this entire side of the sheet for checks, the stuff the player only ever has to look at when the DM asks for it. And while there is a lot here to work with, we could decide to only take the ones that the character is proficient in, so that when comparing these sheets with their friends, they can say, oh, I've got animal handling. Oh, you don't have animal handling. What are you good at? Oh, I'm good at stealth. I'm good at insight. It's another way of making the sheet feel special. This looks far less dense than that, but it conveys all the same amount of information. And we don't even need these saves, so we could strip that to make it even cleaner. It only requires a slight adjustment to the way that you ask for checks. If you want to do an athletics check, you might say, look on the left side of your card for where it says strength. See the number next to that? Right, so I want you to roll a big die and add the number next to strength. Or if it says athletics anywhere under strength, you can use that number instead. Or the bad guy's taking a swing at you, that's a 15. What's your defense? On the top left of your card, it's a 16. Oh, okay, he misses. Now, spells. Spell slots are a popular method, a popular mechanic for 5th edition. Not here though, we're using spell points, or better yet, mana. Now, there are tables with the math on how to run a game with spell points, but we don't need to worry about any of that. We're going even simpler. We're getting rid of all notions of cantrips, spell levels, and so on. We will simply put down the mana cost next to each spell. But where do we put the spells themselves? We've got all this area left to work with, but we don't want to turn it into a dense mess like this. So I break this into 2 sections, special and your turn. Gone are actions, bonus actions, abilities, and so on. We're simplifying it down to green and orange, and we even write on the card, pick 1 green and 1 orange. So behind the scenes, everything that would cost an action, we're simplifying here and coloring it green. For example, let's fill in a Warhammer attack. What do we need to know? Well, what to call it, what to add to the d20 when attacking, and what to do on a success or failure. We also need the mana cost, the range, and I like to write whether it's a melee, a ranged, or a spell, so that immediately upon reading it, the player gets a sense for how to visualize this. But beyond that, you can add a brief description so that the player knows what's going on. I wouldn't include it on something as simple as Warhammer Strike, but what about a more complex example, like the spell Shatter? It doesn't have a number that we add to the d20 roll, it requires a con save. The player doesn't need to know what con save means. They don't need to know, okay, what's a +6, what's the fist mean in that. All they need to know is on your turn, pick 1 green and 1 orange, and when they select something that grabs their fancy, oh, Warhammer Strike, that sounds pretty brutal, yeah, let's go with that. These are things that the DM can explain as time goes on, but it's still a lot easier to digest than, okay, Warhammer attack bonus +4 damage type, and I mean, when can I use this? So Shatter. Should have moved that across. Never mind. It's a spell. On a success, it does 3d8 thunder damage. And on a failure, it does half damage. So we need the mana cost. That was 2, because it is a 2nd level spell. We're not going to be doing any casting at higher levels in a one-shot or in an introductory session. And its area of effect, it's not fist range. What can we draw here? Well, it's a 10-foot sphere. So let's just put a 10 inside of a circle. And then we need a description. Remember, informative but flavorful, short and sweet. We want to entice the player to use these abilities. Thunder erupts from a point of your choice within 60 feet. and we have the 10 within the circle here, which we can explain to the player when they're considering using this. Now, even without understanding what all these numbers mean, this is enough for a player to look at it and get an idea of what these two abilities are about. Okay, on my turn, pick one orange, one green. These would both be green. Warhammer Strike, it says physical damage, it says melee, there's a little picture of a fist. It's pretty obvious what this does. Shatter, it says thunder damage, it's a spell. Thunder erupts from a point of your choice within 60 feet. That sounds interesting. And then the DM can explain the number in the diamond is how much of your mana it will cost. And the number next to the diamond in the shape, what is that? It's a 10 inside of a circle. That means everything within a 10-foot circle of the point you pick will get hit by that attack. If you want to cast it, what's in the top left box? It says +6, it says con save 16. Okay, the DM takes care of how these work. Let's do another example, Fog Cloud. First, we can do our box for what it requires, and Fog Cloud, well, it just works. So I just put a smiley face. You can put whatever you like. It's a spell. It costs 1 mana. It works within a 20-foot sphere, and there's no real success or failure condition because it just works. So let's just give an explanation so the player understands what the spell does. Fog spreads from a point of your choice. We don't have any of the specific rulings on how it spreads on a turn-by-turn basis. We don't have the range of how far away can they be when they cast this spell. Our Fog Cloud does have quite a long range by default. I think it might be 120 feet or longer. But that's not what's important for these new players. As much as rules lawyers would be very upset by this approach, this just gives a little more freedom. It's okay to leave your words a little open for interpretation. Someone could look at this and then think, oh, it doesn't say how far away. Wow, I could just stand up here and put fog way off on the horizon. Yeah, sure, why not? That sounds interesting. Again, we want this to invite the player to experiment, to read these things and have ideas, not to figure out the minutiae of the rules and what they are technically allowed to do. This should be pick up, have a glance, understand, have fun. Now, I haven't put any bonus actions here, and that will depend on the class. Some classes have a lot of bonus actions or free things, so they're going to have more orange options than others, but that's fine. It's like picking up a character in any other board game. You don't want them all to be identical. It's their differences that make them interesting, which is why I'm not including the checks that they're not proficient in. More differences between the sheets, which leaves us with the special section. Call it traits, unique, why I'm awesome, whatever you like. Now, these are more cool little things about the character themselves that the players will look at to be inspired and hopefully act upon. Yes, it's the place for racials, but not every little detail. We don't need orc skin, your pigment has a swamp-like sheen. We want to give the players tools to play with. And if you look at the rest of this sheet from the new player's point of view, okay, to the left we can ignore most of the time. It's only for when the DM is asking a question. The right says on your turn, and it all seems very combat-centric, or at least aggressive. I can cast Fireball, cool, but it's a direct approach. So this is a space for more social, more subtle, more roleplay traits. Looking at this sheet, we have city secrets. You have a way with words and extracting the truth from even the most dishonest of people. Stone cutting. Through contact with masonry or worked stone, you can recall glimmers of those who recently passed it by. I don't think that's at all what those two traits actually do, but it certainly would grab the player's attention and invite them to brainstorm how to apply this to their current situation. It doesn't have to be this flowery, we could do something a little shorter, a little snappier. And yes, if you really wanted, you could bring in some combat-specific traits. But again, consider being a little loose with the phrasing. Once per day you can choose to maximize the thunder damage of a spell. Doesn't say whose spell, doesn't say if the spell had to hit. And that's all there is to this. I mean, you can flip it over and put a physical description if you want to prompt the players to envision themselves in a specific way, but everything you need for a first gameplay session should be here. I'm sure you'll note I didn't put movement speed, temporary hit points, equipment, and just to reiterate, we're not looking to take every detail, every little mechanic, every rule from here and stick it here. We're not going for purity, we're acknowledging that this is a terrible first step that will turn a lot of players away, so we're making a simplified welcoming sheet that feels like any other board game, so that even your isolation inmates can pick it up and have a good time. And joke's on them, they played D&D and they loved it. Thank you to all my patrons for making it possible for these videos to continue. If you're not a patron yet, we're about to make a one-shot, and if you join in now, you get early access to all of my videos, which means if you're watching this on YouTube, there's already something new up on Patreon for you to check out. I wanted this to be a quick video, but I think I failed in that regard. In any event, I do hope you got something actionable out of this, whether it's making a similar sheet using a similar thought process to eliminate what's turning people away, or that now you're thinking on it, you're going to come up with an even better and opposing solution that works for you. But I'll leave that in your hands. I need to get back to unpacking. So stay safe, and until next time, I'll see you down under in the comments.